Rational and irrational numbers, lesson number 1, the notes. I'm going to start talking about rational numbers now. A rational number is any number that can be expressed as a ratio of two integers. So it's a fraction that has an integer in the numerator and an integer in the denominator. It could also be a repeating decimal, decimals that go on forever, but have a pattern to them, a repeating pattern. Or it could be a terminating decimal. Terminating means ends, the decimal ends. Or it could be an integer, which we've already discussed. Okay, so let's write these examples down. First, let's start with the ratio of integers, or a fraction. Okay, so it'd be 3/4 or negative 2/3. Those are examples of fractions that there's an integer in the numerator and an integer in the denominator. So those are ratios of integers. Okay, next, repeating decimal. Again, repeating decimals have a certain pattern, certain numbers that repeat forever. So the 1.32, since there's the bar over the 3,2, that means it goes 3,2, 3,2, 3,2, 3,2 on forever. The 0.6, sorry about that, that bar should only be over the 6. Let me fix that for you. Okay, so the 0.6, that means the 6 repeats forever. You might not know this, but that is the common fraction of 2/3. 2/3 as a decimal is the repeating decimal, 0.6. Next, terminating decimals, decimals that end. 1.5, it ends at the 5. Or negative 0.758, it ends after the 8. Those are terminating decimals, decimals that end. And then again, last, there's integers, 5, negative 22, 1 million, that's an integer, and so forth. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting expressions into our calculators and determine whether it's a rational or irrational number. So I want to show you something first. Okay, now if I want to enter the square root into the calculator, you would press the second button, the x squared button, put in the number, and then hit enter. So let me show you this calculator here. Okay, if you're using one of the school's calculator, the second button is this button right up here. Try that again, there we go. The x squared button, which if you look close enough, you'll see the square root symbol above it in green. That's the x squared button. Then you'd put in the number, and then you would hit enter, obviously. So second, the x squared, put the number in and hit enter. So if I look at these examples that I did up here, when I put the square root of 4 into the calculator, I got 2. 2 is an integer. Then I put the square root of 1.44 in the calculator. That gave me 1.2. 1.2, that is a terminating decimal. It's a decimal that ends. So therefore, when I did the square root of 4 or the square root of 1.44, I got an integer answer and I got a terminating decimal. So both of those numbers are rational numbers. But if you look at the square root of 5 and the square root of 12, I did not get the same thing, which I'm going to talk about those here shortly. Okay, so again, I have a bunch of examples here. Square root of 25, I just get 5. That's an integer answer, so that's a rational number. Square root of 10,000, I get 100. That's an integer. That's a rational number. Square root of 361, I get the answer of 19. That's an integer. So the square root of 361 is a rational number. Over here, square root of 2.89 or the square root of 0.64, square root of 4.84. I got 1.7, 0.8, 2.2 respectively. Those are all terminating decimals. So all of these are rational numbers. Okay, but there are going to be times that when you put in the calculator, it doesn't give you an integer or a terminating decimal and so forth. And that is when we will talk about irrational numbers. So if you have any questions on rational numbers, again, which is a ratio of integers, or a fraction with an integer in the numerator, integer in the denominator. Repeating decimals, decimals that have the same number, or two numbers, or multiple numbers that repeat over and over again. Terminating decimal, decimal that ends, or an integer. Those are all rational numbers. If you have any questions on rational numbers, let me know.